Hi, my name is Chalon, and I'm here to help you find your next favorite book and your next favorite author. And I'm here with Kehinde Winful, who is a poet and a lawyer and a storyteller whose emotional and thought provoking stories will linger after that final page. Her novel, Flooding the River, was released in 2025, and I'm so excited to chat with you about it.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having
Yay. Of course. I would love to know what first sparked your love for storytelling.
me. I think I love this question because there's not like a succinct answer. I just feel like I was born and I knew I wanted to write. I always tell the story, but there's a picture of me when I was in second grade and I'm standing in front of like a bookshelf holding a book that I wrote. And it's like, Kehinde Winful has written 8 books and loves to read them to the loves to read them to the class during story time. So I just like use that to be like, I always wanted to write and tell stories. It's just part of me, I think.
I love that. What sorts of stories were you drawn to?
I think the first book I remember reading is like Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry, way back when.
Mm-hmm,
I also
hmm
remember reading A Taste of Blueberries. I cannot remember the author, but that just like just really remember reading those.
hmm
Also, Lemony Snicket, I read all of the series of Unfortunate Events.
hmm
I just loved reading. And back when I was in elementary school, I don't know if all schools did this, but we had like those, like a reading challenge, and the books had like different dots, like a red dot, orange dot.
Yes, yeah.
You could bring it to the
Yes.
library. I had like pages and I just loved to read. So
hmm
I don't know. I think my mom loves to read, my dad loves to read. So I think that's just kind of it's in the family, but I just love to read.
Yeah, I love that too. My mom says the reason I wear glasses is because of the reading in the dark and like trying to like, can I get one more chapter in, sort of thing. So I definitely relate to that. How did your love for reading translate into you wanting to tell your own stories?
It's funny because I think back to when I was like writing those stories when I was in second grade, and I still have those books like at my home in Minnesota. And it's just like they would give us those hardcover books, and then you put the paper underneath it, and it gives you lines, and you write on the lines. I
Mm-hmm.
just wanted to tell stories. I just had so many ideas in my head that I'm like, okay, I can tell this story and that story. And I wanted to tell all of these stories. But I remember when I would be, because in those books, you could also like illustrate the stories as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I would
Mm-hmm.
remember like, oh, is it okay if I like make the characters black? Like I didn't know because most of the books I was reading, it was white characters, but I'm like, well, this is my book and I want the characters to look like me. But I would like think in my head, like, can I do that? Is that how books are a lot like, can books be like that?
Mm-hmm.
But I just think it started, I wanted to tell stories from an early age. And I think that just followed me throughout my life, even into my career now as an attorney. That's
Mm-hmm.
what lets me kind of, I don't know, be happy in this career. Is like, okay, at the end of the day, I'm still storytelling. But I think that's just a
Mm-hmm.
part of me.
Yeah, I love that. How do you think your approach to storytelling needs to be different? Like if you're thinking about as a lawyer versus like writing fiction and like actually being able to like craft like flooding the river.
Yeah, I think one way when I was in law school, one of my professors told me, he's like, you know, obviously legal writing isn't as creative writing.
Mm-hmm.
The way that you can think of it is like the structure of your argument is what makes it creative. So I just tell
Mm-hmm.
myself that, and it's just stuck with me. I don't know if I don't know. I think that's just what stuck with me. But
Mm-hmm.
when I'm writing in a legal sense, I feel like now, especially after law school, I just try to be as succinct as possible because I think the law kind of requires that, or at least the partners who I work for, that's the writing style that they like. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
writing for a different audience. But when I'm writing fiction, it's just like from my heart. I can just be myself and use very, because I write poetry, I like very like flowery language. I like
Mm-hmm.
metaphors. I like, not necessarily getting straight to the point. And I
Mhm.
think legal writing requires you to get straight to the point quicker than creative writing.
Mhm. Yeah. So I would love to know, like, because you've been writing forever in the varying capacities. Um, what made you want to pursue like actually publishing a book? And like what was that process like?
Yeah, it's interesting because in undergrad, so I was a double major in psychology and English,
Mm-hmm.
and I was writing a lot. And I thought, okay, one day I'm going to be a writer. I'm going to publish a book. My thought was that I was going to publish a poetry book. And then I
Mm-hmm.
took a fiction workshop and I was like, oh, this is interesting, but I can never see myself writing an actual novel. Like, that's just, I don't know. I write poetry. But then as I was, I don't know, as I was just like writing more, I'm like, well, maybe I could write a novel. But I think the turning point for me was really such a little thing. But I was on Instagram, no, I was on Twitter one day, and someone who I went to college with, I just saw his Twitter and his bio had the word writer in it. And I was like, that's so cool. Like he gets to, and he was doing a lot of cool writing and he like made his own newspaper and now he still does like he's like the editor in chief of the Kansas City Defender. So he's been writing.
Oh
But
wow.
I
Mm-hmm.
just saw that and I was like, wow, like who gets to call themselves a writer? Like that's so cool. I want to call myself a writer. Like
Mm-hmm.
I want to be a writer. So from that moment, I'm like, okay, I get to be what I say I want to be. So to do that, I need to actually put pen to paper and like start writing a novel. So that's what I don't know, just like seeing someone else call themselves something that I wanted to call myself and I wanted to be was kind of the catalyst for me.
That's amazing. What made you want to approach it with a novel first as opposed to a poetry collection? Like what made you want to have more space,
Yeah,
more space to tell stories?
I think it was just this story in particular.
Mhm.
I had like a story in my heart that I wanted to tell, and it just happened to be in terms of a novel and
Mhm.
not necessarily poetry. I was writing poetry during that time, but I wanted to tell a love story. I wanted to tell a story about family, and it just felt like, okay, this is something long form. This isn't necessarily a poem. And I write poems. I like short poems. I like short
Mm.
books, short poems. I just like short everything. So I'm like, the story I want to tell is not going to work in like a necessarily a poem format.
Mm.
So I started
Mhm.
writing the novel. Yeah.
Got you. Well, let's chat about the novel. So, for Flooding the River, for those that aren't familiar, is centered on Lola and her life, and it's transformed when she decides to enroll in a writing program in Nigeria, and she's able to reconnect there from not having been there since she was like a young child. And then, but there's secrets from her mother that she's sort of navigating or sort of not paying attention to
Yeah.
as she's going through her own journey. But then she also develops a lot of relationships. And then there's two men in particular where she has to make some decisions. So, what was the inspiration for the story? Like you were saying, it was calling to you, you wanted to write it. What was the inspiration?
Yeah. It was, so it's fiction, but I did study abroad my junior year of college. And I think that experience kind of informed this story in some
Mhm.
ways because, I did meet two people and I was like, oh, what if I can like fictionalize this and
Mhm.
get into something else? But I was just doing a lot of reading and I knew, like I said, the story, I wanted to tell a love story and I wanted to tell a story about family. So that was just knowing those themes kind of inspired how I wrote the novel. But I
Mhm.
wanted, like, you kind of speak to the secrets in the book. I wanted the reader to be more informed than the main character, which is why I kind of wrote it
Mm.
with the prologue. Like,
Mhm.
know more about her life than she does about Lola's life. And that was important to me too. I just thought it's just interesting when books are like that. So I wanted to
Mhm.
do that.
Yes. I thought that was a very interesting approach, starting with the mother story and like what she's gone through and how that impacts their future decisions. Like obviously their relationship, but their future decisions. How you say you studied abroad, how much of your experience is woven into Lola's journey throughout the story?
I think some of it, I studied abroad in Ghana, but
Mm,
it's
mhm,
similar to Nigeria in some ways. She's Nigerian American, I'm Nigerian American. Her family won the visa lottery, my family won the visa lottery, which is how
mhm,
we came to the United States when I was 3. I was born in Nigeria as well. So
mhm.
just like little things like that are all like part of my story and her story. But it's really just, I would say, just a she's like a fictionalized version of things that I've seen in the real world, which I
Mm,
feel like
mhm,
fiction is that. It's like things you see and then you just take it and make your own story.
mhm. Yeah, there's one thing that I noticed while reading is like there's like this running theme of choice, like the pressure to choose, like am I choosing the right person and am I choosing the right passions, that kind of thing. And then also like choosing to potentially find out more information because Lola is disconnected from her mother, and you have to read the book to find out why. You have to read the book to find out why. But there is disconnection there. But she doesn't necessarily choose to bridge the gap necessarily until she has a little bit more life experience.
Yeah.
So I would love to know like what your thought process was as you were crafting the story, because there's a lot of like people having to choose things
Yeah.
beyond just like Lola choosing things too.
Yeah. And I think that I love that you say that because I think even in my life now, choice, like making the right decisions or just that's something that I'm always dealing with. So I think
Mhm,
putting it in fiction was a way for me to kind of put it like pen to paper and see how other people, these fictionalized characters, kind of figure it out. And I think when I wrote the book, I was younger. So choice seemed, different to me then. Like, for example, the choice of Lola's mom to tell her about her life or not.
mhm,
Back when I wrote it, I'm like, oh, she should have told her. Like, she should tell her all of these things. Like, why wouldn't she tell her
mhm,
daughter? And now that I'm older, I'm like, well, maybe like her mom's also a person. It's also her first time living this life. This is her story, and she doesn't necessarily have to share it. Maybe she should if she wants to, but like,
mhm,
who gets to decide that? So I think I don't know. I feel like choice is so nuanced and just in life in general. So I feel like when you're putting it in a story, it allows the fiction, like it makes the character more multidimensional because I don't know, there's so many different choices they could make. And then you wonder, okay, well, why are they making this choice versus that choice? And then what choice would you make as the reader for yourself or for the character? So I think that interactive piece for me, I really wanted the reader to just I don't know, to have feelings and opinions and like, okay, I wouldn't do that, or I would do that, or that's something that was important to me. I wanted it to kind of be interactive.
yeah, I definitely had some opinions about some of the things Lola was doing. I was like, ma'am, please. Several times I was like, okay, I'm gonna go with you on this
Yeah.
journey and see what you come away with, because like one of the central choices she's making is between these two very different men
Yeah.
that she feels equally attracted to. One is like more of an immediate like, ooh, that looks like somebody I want
Yeah.
kind of thing. And then someone else is like a little bit more subtle.
Mhm.
um I would love to know like your how you crafted both Namdi and Chi,
Mhm.
because they're not necessarily opposites, because everyone is also writers, which I thought
Yeah.
was also very interesting. But I would love to know what things you wanted folks to pull away from each of those characters in contrast to Lola.
Yeah, I do. I love that you say that because they're not opposites, but I do think that they bring out different sides of Lola, which is what I wanted to show. Like with Namdi, it was an immediate kind of connection. And I think it just showed her because to me as a character, she's very in her head. She's always like overthinking everything. So to me, their love story kind of showed her being uninhibited and just kind of, giving love a chance and trying not to overthink something and saying, well, like, what if this does work out and kind of leaning down that story. And I think with Chi, we just saw like she was just herself and it was a friendship that possibly turned into something more. But I think we just saw how, I don't know, that relationship to me was more, I don't want to say intentional, but it was more, I don't know what the word is. It was just more, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. But I think she didn't have to like try because they were just friends and she was just herself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, the way that I viewed it was like attraction versus like compatibility.
There we go. Yeah.
It was the way that it looked like to me. And it's not saying she didn't have some elements of herself that was compatible with Namdi, because everyone in this circle is very creative in their own way. Like mentioned, they're all writers. They approach it and tackle it differently. So there's another choice element there about like what they choose to write and how they choose to show like their passion for writing. But yeah, but I thought that was really interesting. So I guess it's like also a conversation of like, can you potentially make like that initial attraction, like that initial jolt that you get from seeing someone that you like how they look, last, is that possible, or is it something where you need something that has like more of the slower builds with
Yeah.
like rooted in compatibility?
That's my dad was just here and he was talking to me about the book and he was like, she makes no sense to me. She just saw him and decided that she liked him. And then it's like all of this was her fault. Like, how can you just decide that quick that you love somebody? But I'm like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. I think sometimes in life, you just like that connection. Like, I don't know, there's no word for it. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
connection with Namdi, it just was. And I
Mm-hmm.
think sometimes when you're younger, love can be like that. It's just, okay, love, well, not like it love, but okay, like that person's for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And as you get older, you kind of get more sense. You're like, that doesn't make it, like, let me like kind of think this through. But I think she was at an age where you can see someone and feel something and be like just inquisitive, like, okay, what is this here? And I think she really wanted to see it through, like, why am I feeling these strong emotions that I have? I'm so analytical about everything else, but this, I love him. And why?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, especially if we're thinking about the age she was, and that has never happened before. That's also different, a different experience, because it's like, wait, hold on, is this what people have been talking about when they say
exactly.
they've been in love? Oh, okay, this must be love, and going with it. So yeah.
Yeah. Cause I think at like, now that I'm older, I'm like, girl, but I feel for her. I'm like, I think love. And I think I was kind of like that, just so in love with the idea of love and like, oh wow, like this person in front of me is so magical and great. And then you have a different choice who's just like, but you don't know then, like maybe that less of a spark and that just like friendship compatibility is kind of what that quietness is kind of what you're actually looking for, but you think you're looking for the like butterfly. I don't know how to, yeah. So
Yeah,
she,
like the combustible explosions, the fireworks,
yeah,
whatever word that we could use for that, with Namdi. I think there's also something in reference to like when we're thinking about her relationships, whether it's with Namdi and Chi, or with her mother, or with Auntie K, of like expectations that she has for their relationships versus the reality of the relationship as well. And like, and how that also impacts her choices. Cause like one thing that I was wondering is like, if she did have contacts on the secrets her mother has been keeping, would that have changed her choice to be in Nigeria in the way she was, or a choice of Namdi or Chi as well?
I think it would. I think her expectations maybe would have been, I think it would have changed her choices because it would have changed who she was as a person. I
Mm-hmm.
think in knowing her mother's story and knowing the story of, sometimes what her mother did for her, and to me, I kind of think of it as like love is sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
If she would have had that kind of running theme in her head when she encountered these two love interests, and she's like, okay, well, this person claims to care about me, but they're not doing these little things. But I know that from my story that love sometimes shows up as sacrifice. She
Mm-hmm.
would have made different decisions.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, that's thinking, but then also she's like 20 something. So are you
Mm-hmm.
that introspective at 20 something? But I do think it would have kind of informed. I don't know. My mom is always like, I'm somebody's daughter. And I say that too now. It's like, I'm somebody's child. Like, I deserve something.
Mm-hmm.
If she would have had that running thought in her head, maybe that would have kind of informed her choices differently. And she would have found a love interest or settled on one quicker than she did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because she potentially could have felt like more grounded in like her relationship with her mother, which there's a lot of expectations around mothers just in general of like how mothers should act, how you should interact with your mother, that kind of thing. And if your relationship is not the same as like what you're seeing,
Yeah.
then you feel like that disconnection. And I think I really love Auntie K as a character. So she helps and provides like that love and support. But that did make me wonder if she had that and felt that from her mother, would she also have been like, oh wait, no, maybe I need to do things a little bit differently?
Yeah, I definitely think so. And I do think to me though, like now, like her mom really loves her. And I think
Mm-hmm.
it's shown in her actions and not necessarily verbally speaking, which
Yes.
is why I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to have a character like Auntie K, who is my favorite character because I think she's just like a woman's woman, like a girl. She's just like, I don't know, I want to be like her when I grow up. I feel like she's a good friend, even
Mm-hmm.
when, like Yvonne isn't necessarily sometimes a great friend to her, doesn't show up for things that she would necessarily want her to.
Mm-hmm.
But I think to me, it was important to show the relationship with Lola and her mother through someone else because although their relationship is a little bit strained, by virtue of being her mom's best friend, Auntie Kay can show like a little bit of her mother's love to Lola. She can kind of humanize her mother for her. And I do think that role is important, especially, I don't know, as a young girl, like your teens, 20s, you're like, oh, my mom's this, my mom's that. And you have her friends who love her so much who are like, your mom is just a person too. And I can be here for you because I'm here for your mom. And we have that relationship.
Yeah, definitely. And I absolutely loved Auntie K. She was my favorite too.
Yeah.
I just loved how she was like, I'm just gonna live my life the way I want to. I'm gonna wear what I want. I'm gonna present the way I want to in the world. And like she really was just like a ball of sunshine that I think Lola really needed. Like you said, because she was like very in her head and like trying like feeling like everything is so serious and like yes, choices you make when you're younger do impact
Yeah.
your life going forward, so you definitely should take them seriously. But she was like also, since she was so introspective, she did need somebody who's like, come on girl, let's just like
Exactly. Yeah.
let's just go, like there's other ways in which you could approach life too.
Yeah. And I think that's such a good point. Like with Lola, she is so introspective that I think sometimes you just need someone else who's like, life isn't that, like every choice is not the last choice that
Mm-hmm.
you're going to make that's going to like make or break your life. Sometimes a choice is just a choice and then it's the next second. But I think for Lola, every choice felt like this was a decision that was going to either everything would work out or everything would not work out. I
Mm-hmm.
think for someone like Auntie Kay, just seeing like this woman living on her own terms, just being free in who she is, just accepting herself. I think it was a good kind of, not a mirror, but a good kind of reflection back to her of, okay, there's other ways to live this life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also the way she sees Auntie K and her relationships as well is like a good counterpoint to her perception of her relationship with her mother.
Yeah.
Of like, you can still be there for folks, you can do like be supportive of them, even if things look differently on the other side. It's like, but I know I want to be this way, so that's how
Yeah.
I'm going to present as well.
Yeah. Now, Auntie K was, I was like, are you supposed to have a favorite character? And she's not the main character. But to me, she is the character that just brings everyone together. And I think, I don't know,
Mhm.
every family unit, everyone has that one person. And I think that person is just as important as the main character. And she was just my favorite to like write. And just, I love her.
Yes, no, definitely. And I think she also acts as a catalyst for some choices Lola ends up making when we get to the end of the book as well. Just because in my mind, she's like reflecting on Auntie K and it was like, well, what do I want from my life? Like I have the opportunity to have what I want or like what I feel like is going to be most beneficial for me. So yeah, I absolutely loved her.
Yes. Okay, I'm like, was she your favorite character? Or
Yes.
who was your favorite? Okay,
Yeah.
that's my favorite. I don't know if you can have favorites, but I love her. Yes.
Yes, I absolutely loved her. I was like, maybe I need a violet wig. I feel like I need to be a little bit more like Auntie K.
Yeah.
Like, hey, this is who I am. And I'm definitely, like I said, just like a ball of sunshine. It's like you could
Yeah.
not help but love her when
Yeah.
she came up on the page. So definitely.
I was like recently in Ohio visiting like my little like nephews, and they were calling me Auntie K, and I was like, oh,
Ah!
they don't even know because they're like 7 and like 4, so they don't even know anything.
Yeah.
But I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm her.
I love it. Yes. Definitely make sure that sticks. I love
Yes,
it.
it was so funny.
One thing I really enjoyed while reading Lola's story is just how you showcase like the characters' perceptions of Nigeria from like Lola being Nigerian American and like her perception and like feeling immediately at home
Yeah.
like when she gets there, compared to folks who are living in Nigeria and may want to have an opportunity to say, actually, I don't want to, I want what you have and
Yeah.
like being able to live in America. Can you talk a little bit about some of the nuances to that dynamic that you wanted to showcase in the story?
Yeah, and I think that dynamic is just very real in real life, in my life. I know in other Nigerian American people's lives. But for me in particular, I wanted to show that because I thought it'd be more realistic. Like when I
Mhm,
go home to Nigeria, I'm like, oh, I love going home to Nigeria. Like, I love being here. But I have to realize like my relationship with Nigeria is different than people and like my family members who actually live in Nigeria full time. I have a
mhm,
cousin who I'm really close with, and he's just like, well, you can only say that because you're not here all the time. Like you
mhm,
don't live here, which is
mhm,
why you love it so much. And at first I'm like, oh, when I was younger, I'm like, oh, whatever. Like, but now as I'm older, I'm like, well, I that nuance makes sense to me. My relationship with my home and like Nigeria is just necessarily different. I don't live there.
mhm,
And but I do think one thing that I wanted to show in this story is kind of like, who owns the narrative of saying someone is Nigerian enough? Because I
mhm,
think that's
mhm,
something that just does go on with just being in the diaspora. Like you go home, oh, well, you're not Nigerian, you're American. Well, it's like actually I'm Nigerian and American. So it's just, I think that nuance is just very alive in everyday life. So I knew even though this is a fictional novel, that it had to be there because
mhm.
it just is. So that was important for me to show.
Yeah, because then you have, I'm trying to remember Lola's friend.
Any,
Yes, Annie, how she moves to America because she was like, I don't know what you're talking about living here. Like it's great, but I wanna be where you are. And then she gets there and then she starts reflecting on is this actually what I wanted compared to like what I had? And I thought that dynamic was so well done. But then also you have Namdi and Chi's interactions, because Lola is entertaining both of them. That's the way we'll call it. Entertaining, entertaining them.
Yeah.
And she's in America and they're there, and just like what the tensions that can be also when you're trying to communicate long distance, but then also have different perspectives on where you live and where you are. Definitely.
Yeah. And I think with Namdi, it was important for me to show there's some people who don't want to leave Nigeria. Like
Mm-hmm.
Namdi didn't have that desire. My dad's kind of like that. He just didn't have a desire. He's like retired now in Ghana, but we have like some Ghanaian background as well.
Mm-hmm.
But he doesn't have a desire to leave. And I wanted to show that as well. There's some people who they don't want to leave. They don't view America as greener pastures. They are happy where they are. So there's so many different relationships with like the home continent and different places within the African community. So I wanted to show, someone going back who sees Nigeria as home, but they live in America. Someone who's in Nigeria and wants to go to America gets to America and they're like, wait a minute. And someone who's in Nigeria who loves being in Nigeria. I think I know all of those people in real life. So I've just taken like bits and pieces of those little stories and made sure it like was reflected back in the fiction. Because I do think that fiction, some of it should be, I wanted it to be relatable in that sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I definitely appreciate it. I don't have perspective on those views, but I really appreciated understanding the nuances between the two, and then also especially having a character who's like, I do not want to move. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. I have everything I want and need and love right here. So I feel like that was definitely important to show, as opposed to stories where it's like everyone is always trying to come to America, because as we know, living here, that it's a little bit more complex than what's presented. So
and I think that's why I think the story is universal. So even if we take out Nigeria and make America be that, like you said, it's more people living here sometimes want to leave, or people living here want to stay, or people like that feeling is so universal. So that was important to me. But yeah, I think people, I want to come to America. I'm like, I mean, yes, but
just so you know, it's a yes, but, or yes, and
exactly. So I do think it's a universal experience that, even if someone isn't Nigerian or isn't African and felt that, they can use America as kind of that starting place and see how it would go from there.
Yeah, definitely. One other thing that I noticed while reading is the color green is referenced a lot. So and it's referenced in Lola's story. There's like a couch she has her eyes on. There's like a change in her wardrobe. Like I saw green coming up a lot. Can you tell me, is there any special meaning for the color, or Lola's gravitation to that color that you wanted to like show?
That's so funny because color is very important to me. Like the things I like to write about are love, color, and then mother-daughter relationships. But I didn't specifically think, I didn't even know green was in there a lot. I do know about the green couch because I wanted a green couch. And even like my couch right now, there's like a green cover on it. But I didn't think anything of it. But I do think, to me, colors represent so much and you can do so much with it, that's why the cover is also so colorful. And like you can like see my background. I love color. I just think, I don't know, I just love it. But it's funny because at that time red was my favorite color, but now green is my favorite color. So I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what green was meaning to me at the time, but I just know that I love like putting colors into my writing and kind of using the color to represent something. So now I kind of want to I wonder I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah, because I was like, am I supposed to be thinking something about like prosperity or calmness, or I was like trying to think of like the things that I associate with green,
Yeah.
and like growth and things like that. And if there was like something about like her pull to that, especially once we get to the end as well.
No, I don't think so. I just have always wanted when I close my eyes and picture my dream house, I have a green couch. So that's just like she wants a green couch. Like that's just
Yeah.
yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know.
I love that.
It's funny.
And then you touched on about like the mother-daughter relationships in this book. What did you want to showcase between Lola and Yvonne? Because one thing I also wondered was if we got some of her perspectives as Lola was in the heights of trying to make decisions. Like, what is Yvonne thinking? Like, because we get some insight that she knows more than Lola thinks she knows.
Yeah.
But I'm just really interested in like what you wanted to showcase in their dynamic.
It was really important to showcase to me kind of a different, because I knew I wanted to write about love. And
Mm-hmm.
at first, obviously, when you think about love, you think about romantic love. But then I'm like, well, there's familial love. And I wanted to showcase
Mm-hmm.
that. And that looks different. So I really wanted to showcase what love looked like as sacrifice. And I think that sometimes when you sacrifice yourself for another being, like such as your child, that just informs your story. So
Mm-hmm.
by virtue of sacrificing kind of, her life in Nigeria, this life that she could have had and coming to America, this is the consequences. Like that strained relationship is kind of a consequence of that sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes again to choice, but it's really, I just wanted to show like a different side of love. That love
Mm-hmm.
is sacrifice. And even though, you're making these decisions out of love, there's unintended consequences that you don't necessarily account for, like a strained relationship with your daughter
Mm-hmm.
that may or may not be eventually fixed, but that's just kind of, I wanted to show that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I definitely appreciated that, especially since we do get some balance with Auntie K's character and like how she and Lola interact. And just like again, the complexities of mother-daughter relationships. Like sometimes they don't look like the Gilmore Girls. That's
Yeah.
the first example that pops in my head. Like they look a little bit more complex than that, as far as like what the interactions look like.
Yeah. And I think it's like it can look different. Like this is not the Gilmore Girls by any means, but that same love is still there. Like
Mm-hmm.
love really just looks different to different people, different cultures, different stages of life. But
Yeah.
I do think so I wanted to kind of show that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. What do you want readers to feel after reading Flooding the River?
It kind of goes, so the title and the last line, so flooding the river, and it talks about kind of how the accumulation, like his love was like the misty rain and all the proverbs coming slowly but flooding the river. And to me, I want the reader to get to the end and just think about all the little moments that make up this big life. Like all the little moments for Lola, it's like the misty rain. And you don't necessarily think that's going to end up in, like, if something is misty, you're not going to think, oh, that mist is going to flood the river. But
Mm-hmm.
it does, like, all of these little moments really just add up to this, like, great, big, and beautiful life. And I think that's what I wanted for the reader, especially if like a Black woman reading this or an African woman, just seeing, like, this is, I don't know, we get happy endings. There's, like, some,
Mm-hmm.
it comes slowly, it comes an accumulation of all of these things, but you get that happy ending. And it's
Mm-hmm.
just accumulation of all the little things.
Yeah, I love that because we see that with Lola, but then we also see that with Auntie K as well,
Mhm.
as well. So it can show up in a variety of ways and a variety of forms, definitely.
Yeah. So that's hopefully, well, what was your takeaway? Now I'm like curious. When you got to the end, what were you thinking?
My takeaway was like really surrounded about choice of just like how much can you um make an informed choice when you also are like missing crucial information, because I it to
Exactly.
me it kept coming back to the mother's past
Yeah.
and like if she had a sense of like what that was, like how, like what her sacrifice was, it wasn't like I'm here and I'm taking care of you out of obligation because
Yeah.
I'm your mother. It's much, much deeper than that. How that would then have like led her approach to like her own relationships.
Ooh,
So
I
like
like
that was like my thinking of just like what that looks like, especially when we're thinking about like your early 20s, of just like we can only do what we can with the information we're provided and like the
that.
time we're in. But just like, are you really ready to choose the life that you want as opposed to one you think you do because of like, I enjoyed this previously, so I
Yeah.
feel like I should stick with it. And it's like, no, you can choose and shift as you learn more about yourself.
I love that because when I was thinking about who I wanted her to end up with, I really did. I sat down and thought, like 10 years from now, if this character woke up, would she be happy in the life that she chose for herself? And I
Mm-hmm.
kind of put myself in that shoes. Like, sometimes when I'm making a decision, I'm like, if I make this decision 10 years from now, would I be able to look at myself in the mirror, no matter how it went, and be like, okay, I'm so
Mm-hmm.
glad I made that decision. So
Yeah.
that was kind of how I decided for her, and knowing that I wanted her to have a happy ending. So it's like what she thought she wanted for herself, and then
Mm-hmm.
really what the life that she says that she wants, what decisions are kind of in line with that. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
even now in my life I'm still making those, okay, I want this, I want this, I want this, but the life that I say that I want, what's actually in alignment with that, what choices actually get me there.
Mm-hmm.
That's like my existential crisis always. I'm like, ugh, so many decisions, everything
It's
feels like life or death sometimes.
right, and it's universal. So you are not alone in that
Yes.
thought, definitely, because I often have times of like, if like you said, if I want my life to look this way in
Mhm.
2 years, 10 years, 20 years, like am I actively doing the actions to like put me on that path? But then
Exactly.
it's also like it also feels like, well, can I do the things? Is that actually what I want? If
Exactly.
I have to do those things to get to there. So, yeah, definitely
Yeah.
understand that.
I think it just Lola is really required to like she had to sit with herself, just like we do as readers, just in real life. Like, what do I want? What do I really want? And how do I get there? If I
Mhm.
want this big life full of love, what decision do I have to make in this part of my life to wake up 10 years from now and have that story that I want? So
Mhm.
that was like what I was thinking as I was so
Okay.
that choice piece makes a lot of sense to me.
Oh yeah. I love that. Yeah. Because I already told you this, but yeah, Lola, my heart rate was going up a few times. I was like, Lola,
Yes,
please.
but think about like being
Yeah.
like when you're like 20 and you like love someone, you're like, oh, like, oh,
Yes.
you didn't
Yes.
talk to me for a month. Okay. Now you're like, it doesn't even make sense. So you just have to like, I don't know.
No, I get it. I was there with the story. It was just some moments where I was like, "Come on."
Yeah, I don't
But
know.
yeah, but I appreciated how you crafted her to have a journey because like decisions and choices are not easy, and sometimes it takes a moment or a step back or like some sort of like catalyst you don't expect for you to like actually think about what's going on around you instead of just continue to go through the motions.
Exactly. So
Mhm.
I'm glad. Okay. I'm glad that that came through.
Yes, yes, definitely. Now, one thing that I just really enjoyed your use of language, but there's one thing Lola mentions about like wanting to write the portraits of people's lives. I just
Mhm.
thought that was just like a really cool way to say like what type of writer she wants to be.
Yeah.
But if you're thinking about you and your writing, what other lives would you like to immortalize in your work?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the way that I want to write because
Mhm.
I like to paint, and I think that you can paint a story. I love to like paint pictures of people with like without their faces.
Mm, mhm.
But I think that my writing, it's like this person, I could tell a whole story about this person in the same way that I painted them. I want to be able to look at someone and just tell a story. And I think even in this novel, like Hurt Banji, I saw him, I was at the airport and I saw this man walk by wearing a full denim outfit. And I just sat and I wrote the prologue. Like I just see people and I just make up this story about what I think
Mhm.
their life is. And I think that's just the type of writer that I want to be in terms of just like memorializing the everyday person. Like
Mhm.
someone doesn't
Mhm.
even know, like they're walking down the street and like that person sparked this whole story for me and he has no, I don't even know him. He doesn't know me. I
Mhm.
would never know who that person was, but he just, I saw him and I'm like, oh, that's someone in my book. So I
Mhm.
just think that my writing, I think I wanted to speak to like the everyday person. I think I'm memorializing just like the ordinary. And I think especially just like as I think fiction is an art and I think as like black artists we get to just tell a story for story's sake and that's what I'm like in the business of doing. I don't think every story has to be like the most grand story you've ever read in your life, but I do think everyday people, like everyone has a story and it's important for just because it's a story. So that's the type of writer that I want to be.
I love that because that gives opportunities to shine light on folks that feel familiar. So,
Yeah.
like, if I'm reading, I can immediately feel connected to a character, whether it's like, oh, those are things that I do, or I know someone just like this as well, which definitely came through in your work, especially with like thinking about like Lola and her choices, but then also Auntie K. Like I know people like Auntie K who are just
Yeah.
like, this is who I am and you're gonna love it. You're not gonna have a choice,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So yes, I really appreciate that. Are there any other genres or like types of stories with ordinary people that speak to you?
I think I just love the like family saga,
Mm,
mother-daughter
mhm,
relationship because I just think
mhm.
like to me, like your mothers are just so central to the
Yes.
family unit and just to this life that there's just so much you can do there. So I all of my stories have some kind of relational aspect, but specifically a family, familial, like mother-daughter relationship. I just think there's so much to do there. So I
Mhm.
just love writing. I love a good family saga.
Yes. Yeah, I love that too, especially when there's some secrets or some
Mhm.
mess involved. I'm like,
I
"Yep, this
love
feels
it.
familiar."
Yes. Like so good. Yes.
Yes, definitely. If you overheard a reader who is raving about your work, what 3 words would you want to hear them say?
Okay. The first one is 2 words. Is that okay?
That's okay. I'll allow it.
I would want them to say that it was well written.
Mhm.
I would want them to say it was, well, this is also 2 words, thought provoking.
Okay. Well, we could put a hyphen. We
Okay,
could
perfect.
yes.
And I would want them to say it like something again to the language. Like it was like tender. I think
Mm,
that's
mhm,
to me like I just like love sentences and I think 'cause it's like I'm a poet like at my
mhm.
core and I just like love a beautiful sentence. So if someone read something and was like, "Oh, I love this sentence." Like that is what like I'm looking for. I'm like I don't know. I love when someone's like, "I really love this sentence. It meant so much to me." That's because when I read a book and I read a good sentence, I just like stop and I close it. I'm like, this life is so people are writing sentences like this. Like this life is just
Yes.
so I want someone to read what like my book or like something I wrote and think, oh, think that.
Yeah, I'm good for highlighting when I'm like, like I don't even know how you put those words together to make that sound like that. We all
Yeah,
have the same words, or some more if you have multiple languages that
yeah.
you know. And I was just like, that's truly amazing.
That's my favorite thing about writing because it's like exactly we all have the same words And then there's people who just put words together, and it just, I think just like it reminds you like how like beautiful this life is. Like a
Mhm.
person put together 5 words, and it's the best thing I've ever read in my life, and it made me feel something. It's just, I don't know, it's just like too much to think about sometimes. I love it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love it too. What is the best way for readers to support you in your work?
I would say by buying a copy of Flooding the
Mhm.
River, of course, and you could buy it through my distributor, Itasca Books. It's on Amazon. It's at local bookstores and the library in Minnesota and Denver and other places that I don't know. But you can
Yeah.
follow me on Instagram and just follow along at Kenny Reads. And yeah, tell a friend if you have a book club, read it for your book club pick. And yeah, I think that's kind of how to support me as a writer.
Yes. And what excites you most about where your writing journey is headed?
I think what excites me the most is I'm kind of mixed where I'm at now is that, my love for language and then it's getting like mixed with my love for storytelling. And I think
Mm,
it's coming together because first it started with the love for language. And
mhm.
I'm like, okay, I can make this love for language and kind of put it into and tell a full big story. So I'm just excited to see kind of what else I write and what other sentences that I love. And
Yeah.
that's, yeah, just where my writing goes from here.
Yeah, I'm definitely really excited to see what stories call to you next and seeing what else you put out in the world. I've really enjoyed Flooding the River and cannot wait to see what else. If there's any other water metaphors or anything else in the next book. Yeah.
Yes. I'm like thinking, I don't think so, but we'll see.
Yes. All righty. Well, thank you so much for joining me. And you can make sure to follow at Can You Read so that way you get updated on any upcoming releases and make sure to purchase a copy of Flooding the River.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me.